Good afternoon, listeners. Today we're talking about the Alliance Symphony Orchestra as part of an ongoing series about the wonderful members, the upcoming events, and this lovely music. This orchestra has been a part of the community for 27 years and is a lovely combination of Mount Union staff, students, and talented musicians from around the area. Today, we have the privilege of interviewing the director of the orchestra, Mr. Eric Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin is an adjunct member of the faculty teaching MAC 200 theory and composition here at Mount Union. We will be discussing more of his background in composition and the April 17th concert, Random Acts of Beauty. So, Mr. Benjamin, why the title?
Why the title, Random Acts of Beauty?
Yeah.
It's another way of saying there's no theme for this concert. Sometimes you put a theme together, and that sort of engages the intellectual curiosity of people, if there's any out there, about a symphony orchestra concert. And sometimes you can put a theme around it, like, Christmas is a theme when you do a holiday concert, but there's no holiday, or so you call spring, and you do all this music that's somehow about spring, and that's a theme, and that somehow maybe helps people sort of put together what the music is going to be about, and maybe entices them to want to come. Or you can even get real fancy with your themes, and maybe people be 9/11. Wow, what music is going to do about 9/11? And then people know also what kind of experience to expect. Well, okay, so this theme, the theme is there is no theme. It's only simply some pieces that happen to come to mind, or that happen to come onto my plate because of various circumstances. But they're all charming pieces. And so we decided, well, you need a title for the concert. It's just Alliance Symphony Spring Concert. It doesn't really bring them out on a Sunday afternoon. So we'll see how Random Acts of Beauty does. Anyway, it was something to do, tongue-in-cheek.
So with all the music out there and all the beautiful pieces you could pick,
right.
How did you pick these pieces?
Well, okay, now some of that was dictated to us. There is a competition that we have for students here in the school to have the opportunity to perform a concerto movement with the orchestra. And so we had a winner this year, Paige Morris, is a pianist, and she was going to do a movement of a Beethoven piano concerto. So poof, that's one thing we're going to do on this program. The other thing what's become something that we do in the spring concert with the Alliance Symphony is to collaborate with the Alliance Chorale. This has come under the direction of Ms. Jane Page. The Alliance Chorale is a town gown outfit like the Alliance Symphony is. So there are students and many community members, and we wanted to partner with them. Doing choral literature is a real ball for an orchestra. For one thing, it's not just all orchestra music all the time. It's now some vocal music, so that varies the program a bit. So I wanted to include them, and the pieces that Jane and I talked about are two pieces of choral music, one by Bach and one by the French composer Gabriel Fauré. So those pieces were sort of put in place. All right, and so now my job is to pick from some other things. I got to make sure that students in the orchestra are learning repertoire, are learning good, solid stuff. It's not just pops music, for instance, that we're going to do. We have a responsibility educationally. Also, I've got players who come sometimes from quite a distance, and I've got to have stuff for them to play. Trombone players, if they're going to show up for a rehearsal, they can't play just 5 minutes and then go home. I've got to find substantial amount of literature so that, trombones are not used on every orchestra piece. Beethoven doesn't use trombone players on. And the two choral pieces I selected to do don't use trombones. So I've got to find something that will put the trombone players to work. Either that or else they get bored and they don't want to participate. So there are a lot of considerations that go into it. Keeping players happy, keeping players busy, student players, community players, and who do it for love, and something that will engage them all, and that might be of interest to an audience to come and listen to. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things to go together in it. That's how these pieces came together. Some were put there because we kind of had to be because of who we were featuring on the concert, of course, and then others were things that I just sort of picked to somehow fill in the gaps.
It sounds nice. Yeah, there's some names that are recognizable to like the community, and some that are a little more
That's right. Yeah, like Beethoven.
Yeah.
Right. For him,
Yeah.
he's that good. And this piano concerto, this one movement of piano concerto, is Beethoven in one of the funniest moods. We'd always see pictures of him grumpy, because he's going deaf and he didn't feel good and he was writing serious music. And this piano concerto he wrote when he was actually quite young. I think he was only about your age, 21 or something like that. And it's full of jokes. It is a hoot. So. And Paige is just delightful. She's been a solid member of the orchestra. She's participated as a keyboard player in the orchestra, and then she won this competition. So I'm just delighted that we can have her playing this piece. And that's a Beethoven piece, and people like to hear Beethoven. Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach. And this one piece, I fell in love with this piece when I heard it years ago. It's a one movement piece for small orchestra, as Bach would write, and chorus, and it's a beautiful. Actually, it's a funeral ode, very sweet, sort of reflective piece. And I was pleased when Jane Page put it before the singers to start singing. They fell in love with it. And similarly, this piece by Gabriel Fauré called Pavane. A pavane is a stately dance from the Renaissance. Actually, it's the dance you do if you're in a traditional wedding. The lockstep, when you step together, step. That's a pavane. Actually, it's the wedding lockstep. Okay, so Gabriel Fauré used that rhythm and wrote a piece that called Pavane, and then he wrote it for orchestra and added chorus, and the chorus gets to sing that, and it's very sweet. It's a lovely French piece of French pastry. It just is effortless and floats in the air. It's very beautiful. So yeah, all right. So so Bach was known. Fauré less well known. Camille Saint-Saëns is a composer. We're going to be doing a piece. This composer we're going to be performing is this wild dance from his opera Samson and Delilah. It's called a bacchanal. And it's the party that the Philistines have when they capture Samson at the end of the show. Oh yes, and they have this wild dance, and so the orchestra does this piece. And I'm trying to think all of a sudden, what's the other piece? Two more people are featured as soloists. Two members of the community, actually. One is a faculty member here. Betty Schultz plays oboe and English horn with us, and Brian Burst is a member of the community. He's our principal trumpet player. And there's a piece by Aaron Copland, the American composer. Again, a name that some people will be familiar with. He wrote a piece called Quiet City. It's a tone poem. Actually, it was music for a play that he turned into a concert piece for strings, English horn, and trumpet. And it's a little bit, well, I guess a little bit bluesy, just a little jazzy, but rather somber. Each piece has a real special character. Oh, and then finally, all right, Franz Schubert, famous name. The Unfinished Symphony. This is a famous piece that people have heard. Actually, if you watched, what were the little blue people cartoons?
Oh, the Smurfs.
Smurfs, right. The opening of the. You remember this?
Yeah.
Right. That's a symphony by Franz Schubert. It's the famous Unfinished Symphony, a piece that he wrote. Symphonies have usually 4 movements. He finished 2 and started a 3rd, and then for one reason or another, we don't know why, never finished it. But these 2 movements are amazing, just amazing pieces, and justifiably famous. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna try to finish it.
Sounds good. So you mentioned some of the soloists, and I was just wondering how do you come by the soloists? Do they audition? Is it by chair rank?
This was simply. You want to do this? Well, Paige Morris auditioned.
Yeah.
Right. But the other 2 is just, these are folks that have been in the group for a while, and I thought, it's time to feature them. Let's you want to do this? Yeah, sure. Okay, if they did it. So that's all. And, I'll think about somebody else next time.
All right. That's about all